Okay, day 2 of Catching Fire. The effect on the game makers is immediate and satisfying. Remember, she had just painted like a dummy hanging with one of the game makers' names on it. It says the effect on the game makers is immediate and satisfying. Several let out small shrieks. Others lose their grips on their wine glasses, which shatter musically against the ground. 2 seem to be considering fainting. The look of shock is unanimous. Now I have Plutarch Heavenby's attention. He stares steadily at me as the juice from the peach he crushed in his hand runs through his fingers. Finally, he clears his throat and says, "You may go now, Mrs. Everdeen." I give a respectful nod and turn to go. But at the last moment, I can't resist tossing the container of berry juice over my shoulder. I can hear the contents splatter against the dummy while a couple more wine glasses break. As the elevator doors close before me, I see no one has moved. That surprised them, I think. It was rash and dangerous, and no doubt I will pay for it 10 times over. But for the moment, I feel something close to elation, and I let myself savor it. I want to find Hamish immediately and tell him about my session, but no one's around. I guess they're getting ready for dinner, and I decide to go take a shower myself, since my hands are stained from the juice. As I stand in the water, I begin to wonder about the wisdom of my latest trick. The question that should now always be my guide is, will this help Peeta stay alive? Indirectly, this might not. What happens in training is highly secretive, so there's no point in taking action against me when no one will know what my transgression was. In fact, last year I was rewarded for my brashness. This is a different sort of crime, though. If the game makers are angry with me and decide to punish me in the arena, Peeta could get caught up in the attack as well. Maybe it was too impulsive. Still, I can't say I'm sorry I did it. As we all gather for dinner, I notice Peeta's hands are faintly stained with a variety of colors, even though his hair is still damp from bathing. He must have done some sort of camouflage after all. Once the soup is served, Hamish gets right to the issue on everyone's mind. "All right, so how did your private sessions go?" I exchange a look with Peeta. Somehow I'm not that eager to put what I did into words. In the calm of the dining room, it seems very extreme. "You first," I say to him. It must have been really special. I had to wait for 40 minutes to go in. Peeta seems to be struck with the same reluctance I'm experiencing. "Well, I did the camouflage thing like you suggested, Katniss." He hesitates. "Not exactly camouflage. I mean, I used the dyes." "To do what?" asks Portia. I think of how ruffled the game makers were when I entered the gym for my session. The smell of cleaners, the mat pulled over that spot in the center of the gym. Was it to conceal something they were unable to wash away? "You painted something, didn't you? A picture." "Did you see it?" Peeta asks. "No, but they'd made a real point of covering it up," I say. "Well, that would be standard. They can't let one tribute know what another did," said Effie, unconcerned. "What did you paint, Peeta? She looks a little misty. Was it a picture of Katniss?" "Why would he paint a picture of me, Effie?" I ask, somehow annoyed. "To show he's going to do everything he can to defend you. That's what everyone in the capital's expecting anyway. Didn't he volunteer to go in with you?" Effie says, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. "Actually, I painted a picture of Rue," Peeta says. How she looked after Katniss had covered her in flowers. There's a long pause at the table while everyone absorbs this. "And what exactly were you trying to accomplish?" Hamish asks in a very measured voice. "I'm not sure. I just wanted to hold them accountable. If only for a moment," says Peeta, "for killing that little girl." "This is dreadful." Effie sounds like she's about to cry. "That sort of thinking. It's forbidden, Peeta. Absolutely. You'll only bring down more trouble on yourself and Katniss." "I have to agree with Effie on this one," says Hamish. Portia and Cinna remain silent, but their faces are very serious. Of course they're right. But even though it worries me, I think what he did was amazing. "I guess this is a bad time to mention I hung a dummy and painted Seneca Crane's name on it," I say. This has the desired effect. After a moment of disbelief, all the disapproval in the room hits me like a ton of bricks. "You hung Seneca Crane?" says Cinna. "Yes, I was showing off my new knot-tying skills, and he somehow ended up at the end of the noose," I say. "Oh, Katniss," says Effie in a hushed voice. "How do you even know about that?" "Is it a secret? President Snow didn't act like it was. In fact, he seemed eager for me to know," I say. Effie leaves the table with her napkin pressed to her face. Now I've upset Effie. I should have lied and said I shot some arrows. You'd have thought we planned it, says Peta, giving me just the hint of a smile. Didn't you? Asks Portia. Her fingers pressed her eyelids closed as if she's warding off a very bright light. No, I say, looking at Peta with a new sense of appreciation. Neither of us even knew what we were going to do before we went in. And Hamish, says Peta, we decided we don't want any other allies in the arena. Good, then I won't be responsible for you killing off any of my friends with your stupidity, he says. That's just what we were thinking, I tell him. We finish the meal in silence, but when we rise to go into the sitting room, Senna puts his arm around me and gives me a squeeze. Come on, let's go get those training scores. We gather around the television set, and a red-eyed Effie rejoins us. The tributes' faces come up district by district, and their scores flash under their pictures, 1 through 12. Predictably high scores for Kashmir, Gloss, Brutus, Inobaria, and Finnick. Low to medium for the rest. Have they ever given a 0? I ask. No, but there's a first time for everything, Senna answers. And it turns out he's right, because when Peta and I each pull a 12, we make Hunger Games history. No one feels like celebrating, though. Why did they do that? I ask. So that the others will have no choice but to target you, says Hamish. Go to bed. I can't stand to look at either one of you. Peta walks me down to my room in silence, but before he can say goodnight, I wrap my arms around him and rest my head against his chest. His hands are on my back and his cheek leans against my hair. I'm sorry if I made things worse, I say. No worse than I did. Why did you do it anyway? He says. I don't know, to show them that I'm more than just a piece in their games, I guess. He laughs a little, no doubt remembering the night before the games last year. We were on the roof, neither of us able to sleep. Peta had said something of the sort then, but I hadn't understood what he meant. Now I do. Me too, he tells me. And I'm not saying I'm not going to try to get you home, I mean. But if I'm perfectly honest about it, if you're perfectly honest about it, you think President Snow has probably given them direct orders to make sure we die in the arena anyway, I say. Crossed my mind, says Peta. Crossed my mind too, repeatedly. But while I know I'll never leave that arena alive, I'm still holding on to hope that Peta will. After all, he didn't pull out those berries, I did. No one has ever doubted that Peta's defiance was motivated by love. So maybe President Snow will prefer keeping him alive, crushed and heartbroken, as a living warning to others. But even if that happens, everyone will know we've gone out fighting, right? Peta asks. Everyone will, I reply, and for the first time, I distance myself from the personal tragedy that has consumed me since they announced the quell. I remember the old man they shot in District 11, and Bonnie and Twill, and the rumored uprisings. Yes, everyone in the districts will be watching me to see how I handle this death sentence. This final act of President Snow's dominance. They will be looking for some sign that their battles have not been in vain. If I can make it clear that I'm still defying the Capitol right up to the end, the Capitol will have killed me, but not my spirit. What better way to give hope to the rebels? The beauty of this idea is that my decision to keep Peta alive is at the expense of my own life is itself an act of defiance. A refusal to play the Hunger Games by the Capitol's rules. My private agenda dovetails completely with my public one. And if I really could save Peta in terms of a revolution, this would be ideal, because I will be more valuable dead. They can turn me into some kind of martyr for the case and paint my face on banners, and it will do more to rally people than anything I could do if I was living. But Peta would be more valuable alive, and tragic because he will be able to turn his pain into words that will transform people. Peta would lose it if he knew I was thinking any of this, so I only say, so what should we do with our last few days? I just want to spend every possible minute of the rest of my life with you, Peta replies. Come on then, I say, pulling him. I didn't realize how starved I've been for human closeness. I wish I hadn't wasted the last couple of nights shutting him out. When I open my eyes again, daylight's streaming through the windows. No nightmares? He says. No nightmares, I confirm. You? None. I'd forgotten what a real night's sleep feels like, he says. We sit there for a while in no rush to begin the day. Tomorrow night will be the televised interview, so today Effie and Hamish should be coaching us. More high heels and sarcastic comments, I think. But then the redheaded Avox girl comes in with a note from Effie saying that, given our recent tour, both she and Hamish have agreed we can handle ourselves adequately in public. The coaching sessions have been canceled. Really? Says PETA, taking the note from my hand and examining it. Do you know what this means? We'll have the whole day to ourselves. It's too bad we can't go somewhere, I say wistfully. Who says we can't? He asks. The roof. We order a bunch of food, grab some blankets, and head up to the roof for a picnic. A day-long picnic in the flower garden that tinkles with wind chimes. We eat, we lie in the sun. I snap off hanging vines and use my profound knowledge from training to practice knots and weave nets. PETA sketches me. We make up a game with the force field that surrounds the roof. One of us throws an apple into it, and the other person has to catch it. Remember, there's a force field at the roof from book 1, so people can't jump off. It would throw them back. And they also discovered that force field had also been put around the game makers so that Katniss couldn't shoot her arrows in the training center for their little personal one-on-one testing. And they noticed that there was a little ripple, and you could kind of see it. So it kind of tells you there's a force field there. So you kind of learn to look for that. No one bothers us. By late afternoon, I lie with my head on PETA's lap, making a crown of flowers while he fiddles with my hair, claiming he's practicing his knots. After a while, his hands go still. What? I ask. I wish I could freeze this moment, right here, right now, and live in it forever, he says. Usually this sort of comment, the kind that hints of his undying love for me, makes me feel guilty and awful. But I feel so warm and relaxed and beyond worrying about a future I'll never have. I just let the words slip out. Okay. I can hear the smile in his voice. Then you'll allow it? I'll allow it, I say. His fingers go back to my hair and I doze off, but he rouses me to see the sunset. It's a spectacular yellow and orange blaze behind the skyline of the Capitol. I didn't think you'd want to miss it, he says. Thanks, I say, because I can count on my fingers the number of sunsets I have left, and I don't want to miss any of them. We don't go and join the others for dinner, and no one summons us. I'm glad. I'm tired of making everyone around me so miserable, says PETA. Everybody crying, or Hamish. He doesn't need to go on. We stay on the roof until bedtime and then quietly slip down to our rooms without encountering anyone. The next morning, we're woken by the prep team. The sight of PETA and me is too much for Octavia because she bursts into tears right away. You remember what Cinna told us? Vinia says fiercely. Octavia nods and goes out sobbing. PETA has to return to his room for prep, and I'm left alone with Vinia and Flavius. The usual chatter has been suspended. In fact, there's little talk at all, other than to have me raise my chin or comment on a makeup technique. It's nearly lunch when I feel something dripping on my shoulder and turn to find Flavius, who's snipping away at my hair with silent tears running down his face. Vinia gives him a look and he gently sets the scissors on the table and leaves. Then it's just Vinia, whose skin is so pale her tattoos appear to be leaping off of it. Almost rigid with determination, she does my hair and nails and makeup, fingers flying swiftly to compensate for her absent teammates. The whole time she avoids my gaze. It's only when Cinna shows up to approve me and dismiss her that she takes my hand, looks me straight in the eye and says, "We would all like you to know what a privilege it has been to make you look your best." Then she hastens from the room. Wonder what's going on there. My prep team, my foolish, shallow, affectionate pets with their obsessions with feathers and parties nearly break my heart with their goodbyes. It's certain from Vinia's last words that we all know I won't be returning. Does the whole world know it? I wonder. I look at Cinna. He knows, certainly. But as he promised, there's no danger of tears from him. So what am I wearing tonight? I ask, eyeing the garment bag that holds my dress. President Snow put in the dress order himself, says Cinna. He unzips the bag, revealing one of the wedding dresses I wore for the photo shoot. Heavy white silk with a low neckline and tight waist and sleeves that fall from my wrist to the floor, and pearls. Everywhere pearls. Stitched into the dress and in ropes at my throat and forming the crown for the veil. Even though they announced the quarter quell the night of the photo shoot, people still voted for their favorite dress, and this was the winner. The president says that you're to wear this tonight. Our objections were ignored. I rub a bit of the silk between my fingers, trying to figure out President Snow's reasoning. I suppose since I was the greatest offender, my pain and loss and humiliation should be in the brightest spotlight. This, he thinks, will make that clear. It's so barbaric, the president turning my bridal gown into my shroud, that the blow strikes home, leaving me with a dull ache inside. Well, it'd be a shame to waste such a pretty dress, is all I say. Senna helps me carefully into the gown. As it settles on my shoulders, they can't help giving a shrug of complaint. Was it always this heavy? I ask. I remember several of the dresses being dense, but this one feels like it weighs a ton. I had to make some slight alterations because of the lighting, says Senna. I nod, but I can't see what that has to do with anything. He decks me out in the shoes and the pearl jewelry and the veil, touches up my makeup, and has me walk. You're ravishing, he says. Now, Katniss, because this bodice is so fitted, I don't want you to raise your arms above your head. Well, not until you twirl, anyway. Will I be twirling again? I ask, thinking of my dress last year. Last year, when she twirled, it showed flames, if you'll remember when they did the interview. I'm sure Caesar will ask you, and if he doesn't, you suggest it yourself. Only not right away. Save it for your big finale, Senna instructs me. You give me a signal so I know when. All right, any plans for your interview? I know Haymitch left you two to your own devices, he says. No, this year I'm just winging it. Funny thing is, I'm not nervous at all, and I'm not. However much President Snow may hate me, this Capitol audience is mine. We meet up with Effie, Haymitch, Portia, and Peeta at the elevator. Peeta's in an elegant tuxedo and white gloves, the sort of thing grooms wear to get married here in the Capitol. Back home, everything is so much simpler. A woman usually rents a white dress that's been worn hundreds of times. The men wears something clean that's not mining clothes. They fill out some forms at the Justice Building and are assigned a house. Family and friends gather for a meal or a bit of cake, if it can be afforded. Even if it can't, there's always a traditional song we sing as the new couple crosses the threshold of their home. And we have our own little ceremony where they make their first fire, toast a bit of bread, and share it. Maybe it's old-fashioned, but no one really feels married in District 12 until after the toasting. The other tributes have already gathered off stage and are talking softly. But when Peeta and I arrive, they fall silent. I realize everyone's staring daggers at my wedding dress. Are they jealous of its beauty? The power it might have to manipulate the crowd? Finally, Finnick says, I can't believe Senna put you in that thing. He didn't have any choice. President Snow made him, I say, somewhat defensively. I won't let anyone criticize Senna. Cashmere tosses her flowing blonde curls back and spits out, Well, you look ridiculous. She grabs her brother's hand and pulls him into place to lead our procession onto the stage. The other tributes begin to line up as well. I'm confused because while they are all angry, some are giving us sympathetic pats on the shoulder, and Johanna Mason actually stops to straighten my pearl necklace. Make him pay for it, okay? She says. I nod, but I don't know what she means. Not until we're all sitting out on stage and Caesar Flickerman, hair and face highlighted in lavender this year, has done his opening spiel and the tributes began their interviews. This is the first time I realized the depth of betrayal felt among the victors and the rage that accompanies it. They are so smart, so wonderfully smart about how they play it, because it all comes back to reflect on the government and President Snow in particular. Not everyone. There are the old throwbacks like Brutus and Inobaria who are just here for another games, and those too baffled or drugged or lost to join in the attack. But there are enough victors who still have the wits and the nerve to come out fighting. Cashmere starts the ball rolling with a speech about how she just can't stop crying when she thinks of how much the people in the Capitol must be suffering because they will lose us. Gloss recalls the kindness shown here to him and his sister. Beatty questions the legality of the quell in his nervous, twitchy way, wondering if it's been fully examined by the experts of late. Finnick recites a poem he wrote to his one true love in the Capitol, and about 100 people faint because they're sure he means them. By the time Johanna Mason gets up, she's asking if something can't be done about the situation. Surely the creators of the Quarter Quell never anticipated such love forming between the victors and the Capitol. No one could be so cruel as to sever such a deep bond. Cedar quickly ruminates about how back in District 11, everyone assumes President Snow is all-powerful. So if he's all-powerful, why doesn't he change the quell? And Chaff, who comes right on her heels. insists the president could change the quail if he wanted to, but he must not think it matters much to anyone. So basically, most of these victors are calling out the president. They're kind of calling him out and going, you could change this if you were so powerful, kind of testing him a little bit. By the time Katniss is introduced, the audience is an absolute wreck. People have been weeping and collapsing and even calling for change. The sight of me in my white silk bridal gown practically causes a riot. No more me, no more star-crossed lovers living happily ever after, no more wedding. I can see even Caesar's professionalism showing some cracks as he tries to quiet them so I can speak. But my 3 minutes are ticking quickly away. Finally, there's a lull and he gets out, "So Katniss, obviously this is a very emotional night for everyone. Is there anything you'd like to say?" My voice trembles as I speak. "Only that I'm so sorry you won't get to be at my wedding. But I'm glad you at least get to see me in my dress. Isn't it just the most beautiful thing?" I don't have to look at Cinna for a signal. I know this is the right time. I begin to twirl slowly, raising the sleeves of my heavy gown above my head. When I hear the screams of the crowd, I think it's because I must look stunning. Then I notice something is rising up around me. Smoke from fire. Not the flickery stuff I wore last year in the chariot, but something much more real that devours my dress. I begin to panic as the smoke thickens. Charred bits of black silk swirl into the air, and pearls clatter to the stage. Somehow I'm afraid to stop because my flesh doesn't seem to be burning, and I know Cinna must be behind whatever's happening. So I keep spinning and spinning. For a split second, I'm gasping, completely engulfed in the strange flames. Then all at once, the fire is gone. I slowly come to a stop, wondering if I'm naked and why Cinna has arranged to burn away my wedding dress. But I'm not naked. I'm in a dress of the exact design of my wedding dress, only it's the color of coal, which means black, and made of tiny feathers. Wonderingly, I lift my long, flowing sleeves into the air, and that's when I see myself on the television screen, clothed in black, except for the white patches on my sleeves, or should I say, my wings, because Cinna has turned me into a mockingjay. That's the end of chapter 17, and I'll be posting another one soon. I'll let you know. Stay well, you guys.